Hello, hello, hello. Hope you all are doing amazing. I'm going to give everybody some time to join. I hope you are doing amazing. I hope you are doing well. It's Margot Mastery, your heartfelt CFO. If you are new to my channel, come on in, come on in, come on in. Welcome. It's been a hectic morning by me. Um, I usually start fairly early. Who are my early birds here? And the definition of early for everybody could be really, really different. But this morning I was up to the tune of like 5. Um, and there was like a lot going on. And even like late last night, running a CFO and a tax practice is just an ongoing journey. And I must say, I really love every minute of it. And it's just interesting to see how clients evolve. And every tax season, there's different things to learn, there's different things to see around clients. And today's topic really represents a lot of what I have been seeing in the season, which is around why your tax strategy only shows up at filing time. And the theme of conversations that I've been having with clients is that um, they feel that they have tax strategy, but then when we're going into the process, it's far from like that. And I'll give you an example. So we're working on one client right now who has 5 years of tax returns to do. Okay. So it's going from like 0 to like 1,000 in terms of what needs to get done. But in the client's eyes, they're still like, I need this, I need that, but the time has passed. And the awareness and the jump to this is that what we really need to do is align that we're not in control of the tax process, and that no matter what is going on in life, things shift and change around us, that we can see it, but when we let it affect us in the tax process, it's really like a whole different way of living life. It's almost like I call this by default and by design. So, just to tell you a little bit about me, I didn't follow the traditional path around accounting and tax. I had to learn around money and tax from a emotional way, and really growing up it was around money was hard, money was tough, and a lot of like big decisions to really put forth in my own life and really like digest. Did you ever think about like when your parents grew up, when you were growing up and your parents were teaching you around money, it was like, don't turn off the lights, don't open up the windows, like the crevices of things around it, it just kept building around money. And it's like, do more, do more, do more, do more. But did we ever just take a step back and really realize like how we can replace fear with clarity? How could we make calm, grounded decisions? How could we build strategy that actually, will work with your practice? Right before this, um, actually, I have been working with another one of our clients, and one of the team members. It's a fairly large team, and one of the team members has brought up around compliance around their PTO and sick time and all of these things. And the messages were going on till very late last night. And from like super early this morning, like I was telling you. And, it went from like 0 to 1,000. So when you work with a CFO and the tax office, what happens is that these things don't happen that way from like an emergency. It becomes around where you get to build into these things and get it taken care of. So you're probably listening to this and you're kind of like, Margot, you just told us that this was in your office of what happened. So when the client started with us, what ended up happening was it's really like he was letting us implement what he saw fit. And then over time, what was happening is that things grew, and he was like, you know what? Like I see now how this is working, that is working. Like it was his own capacity. And like now today, I updated the employee handbook. I told him like exactly like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and like he could implement this in seconds. So like, you know, doesn't that sound cool? And let's bring this back into tax strategy. If it shows up only at filing time, it's not strategy. So it's like if you do something once a year, like does your mailman come only at tax time? No. To me, he comes like every day, right? So most CEOs believe if my taxes are filed, my strategy is handled. So this other client of ours who was doing 5 years, he couldn't believe that he had to fill in the organizer around his taxes. So basically, it's a report of what already happened, but he couldn't believe that he had to fill it out versus the actual tax office doing it for him. So when you're going to somebody once a year, you basically are just meeting. You're basically just expecting somebody to take on 365 days a year worth of information. And that's a lot. And chances are that's the reason why you're in a reactive situation that really starts to, snowball into other things. So where does strategy actually happen? Tax strategy actually happens throughout the year, not the end of it. Okay, because when it happens at the end of the year, what ends up happening is that you have to like catch up for the whole year. So imagine like this client, right, who's doing 6 years, 5 years at once. Imagine the emotional capacity that has to have with that, because if you miss things, you didn't do things or whatever, or lost cause of whatever money and things of that nature, things start to trigger and trigger and trigger and trigger and snowball. So I want to just tell you like what shapes your taxes, right? Let's think about this constructively: business structure, compensation decisions, profit distribution, financial systems. Like all these things are shaping throughout the year. So your business structure, you're really deciding like once and it should be done. Your compensation decisions could be regularly. Like we have one client who this week who sent us in the payroll system was like 5 hires, might have even been 6, and there was like 2 fires. So like it was big compensation decisions. You're also shaping throughout the year your profits, your financial systems. But imagine profit by architectural design versus default, by just like hoping that it's going to make you profit and not really planning for it. But I want to talk about business structure a little bit and bring it into a story. So this morning, I actually had a phone call around my entity structures because things evolved for me over time as I evolved. And it was hitting on me when I was doing like my own tax returns and, my own wealth development, that I was like, you know what, like you can't just not do this anymore. This is what you teach. You got to operate what you teach. And I have to say, to be legally protected in the right entities, like if something happens to you when you walk out the door, like your family, everybody is protected. And whether you're a single mom, whether you're a mom, an empty nester, a business owner, a husband, a partner, like all of the roles and different things, a grandfather who's taking care of, we have a lot of grandfathers out there who are taking care of their family. And all of the roles, in life, is that you want this to support that the systems you're relying on versus the word of what's happening in your structure. So I want to say that again. The system that's carrying you should be the fort, not your words to operate. So one of our clients happens to operate a lot on words, and they really didn't want to give out this handbook for whatever reason, right? But respecting the business owner and his decisions, it's all good. But then when one thing happens, the whole system falls down. It's kind of like Jenga, right? You try to take out a piece and then like the whole system just starts to topple down. Okay, so let's continue. Compliance versus strategy. Compliance is reporting, filing, accuracy. Strategy is designing, planning, and in control. You're in the driver's seat, right? If you're not in the driver's seat of your car, what happens, right? And then the car is on. It just randomly could go into walls. It's the same thing around tax and money. It's a thing all year. So if you're not paying attention to it, it's not going to happen. If you don't put on both of your shoes, if you don't put on both of your socks, it doesn't happen. But just like you plan for car insurance, you got to plan for your money. You got to plan for taxes. It does cost. I'm not going to lie to you. Tax planning is a separate fee. It's not included in our tax returns fee. It is 2 separate things because it's separate work. There's separate structures. There's separate things that happen around it to help. And At first, it's a lot of work to implement, but it goes a long way. Compliance versus strategy. Most financial conversation is like, here's what happened. So like it's in the past, it's already done and you really can't do anything. Instead of, here's what we should build. So when I was having that conversation this morning, I was telling her what exactly where I'm looking to do. And it was really cool to see how my structures are going to evolve with me. The CEO blind spot, reviewing reports, approving filings, but doesn't design the system. So you may be doing the things, but if you don't design the system that you want to come in and constantly curate it and update it, it's going to be a blind spot. So it's not a set it and forget it. The cost of this is unpredictable taxes, unclear profit, missed opportunities and reactive decisions. I see what happens is when people think tax compliance happens is that they realize the missed opportunities and then the reactive decisions around it to try to like catch up in different things is what happens. And then obviously they didn't know their profit and then the taxes, like it's just from the bottom up. It's just clear cut the clients who want to file year end and that don't do it throughout the year. The leadership shift. It's better to ask is how should this be structured instead of what we should owe. So let's talk about that a little bit. Thinking about things ahead of time instead of just acting on default and worrying about it is a very different way of living, and I can't say it enough. And you may not know how you want it to be structured, but when you go to somebody, they're going to help you structure it so that you are in that rhythm so that you can. Okay? Now, when you are in that rhythm to design it, it can go out of the lines. Did you ever like color something or like watch your kids color and then they didn't necessarily like hit the lines? It's the same thing. Business by default is not necessarily like this magic wand that we can put down. We have to design it. And the more you design it, the more you're going to get out of it. Okay, so let's continue. What real strategy looks like is we think about it ahead of time, intentional compensation, forward decision, structuring profit. As long as you do the intentional compensation that you can always take more money. Okay, like there's always the fear of like, let's say there's money left over, Margot. For sure, there's money going to be left over. Like, let's not think about like if or like what can go wrong, right? What about what could go right? Of course, there's money left over, but the forward decisions is basically where you want to think about. Where to start? Review your entity structure. Is it still aligned? Right? So bringing it back to my phone call this morning, some of what I was doing was not aligned, and that's why I had the phone call. Okay, clarifying the compensation approach, what you're actually able to take in the W-2 versus a salary, versus a distribution, understanding your actual numbers, setting the tax planning check-in, and making decisions on a regular basis. Now, I want to talk about committing to a salary versus a distribution. Lots of times people like, and I've seen this from entities of like 200,000, 50,000, up to like several million, and even like billionaire clients all the time, of where they're just like randomly taking money, and they like that better because they get the full amount. They need 500, they take it. They need 500,000, they take 500,000. But if you don't get yourself onto somewhat of like a salary, you're not paying into Social Security. You have no consistency at home. You have no business strategy or like strength, like stability for your family. So it just comes hand in hand. And it's almost like you feel like, your money is paying those taxes, like when it really should be somebody else's employer taxes. But think about it this way, is that outside of it being tax deductible, the money is going back to you. So when the money goes back to you, you get to make decisions on a regular basis, and it's always serving you. So what's the reflection here? When does tax strategy actually begin? Now, we're recording this March 2026. It begins now. It does not begin with the tax return, but if you didn't do it, start when the awareness happens. Like you have the awareness, we start, right? Okay. Filing closes filing closes the year. It doesn't begin the decisions. Now, you've heard all of this and you made it till the end, and it's like, what's the next step? Let me meet you where you're at. Let me help you make those decisions. I would love to really be able to walk you through where you're at, whether it's making more money, upset about previous year tax returns. There's so many different things that we can do to work together that I can help you make money, help you bring more money, and grow the business the way you dang it want it. And well, I'll say this, I was on a pod meeting yesterday with two ladies, and it was interestingly enough that they were both concerned about the same thing. Okay. And what I said to them was, look, I build businesses like in my sleep. Once you have an idea, I'll build you a business. It's easy to make money if you want to make the money, but if you start to look at everything hard, it's going to be hard. And I would invite you to either put this in your LinkedIn browser or scan the QR codes throughout this so that you can get onto the calendar and we can talk more. If you're not on our email list and you'd like to be, we send out value emails on a regular weekly basis. And we also here on LinkedIn, we create a blog every Tuesday. I think we might be starting to do it twice a week, but officially always on Tuesdays. And our posts go up every day at 7 a.m. And I want to say this is that if you're in a DIY situation or you're in a place where, a lot of the things that you're doing on your own and you're like in the forward vision, but you're not in now and a lot of things are happening, let me help align your priorities and take it from there. We have an assessment. We could also do like a deep dive where you can do like a 1 hour CFO deep dive call together. But the best step is like, what takeaways did you get from here? I would love if you put down below the video. Let me know your takeaways. I know lots of times you're listening to this on the replay. So I say this is like, let me know your takeaways. Let me know what you got from this, what's missing, what you would want more clarity on. But tax strategy is something that happens throughout the year, and it is a separate service. It's not combined with tax returns. It's not combined with any other service. It's a standalone service because there's stuff throughout the process that needs to be involved. There's basic, and then there's higher level things that you can do as you more grow with it. But without bookkeeping and an accounting system, a tax plan is really only going to be a plan. It's going to be harder to implement. I thank you all for listening. I thank you specifically for listening to my listeners. And I look forward to seeing you on my calendar. Please keep the questions coming. Enjoy the posts and the content that are out there, but let me help you take the next steps so that I can help evolve your multiple entities, your growth around real estate, and all of the different things that you are doing. Professional services, we service a lot of different types of businesses, and I cannot wait to help you. Looking forward to seeing you on the calendar, and I look forward to seeing you next week for our LinkedIn Live. Talk soon.